Hello and welcome to this week's video. Most people assume a neutral painting is the easy option. Fewer colours, fewer decisions, less to worry about. But that assumption quickly falls apart the moment you try it. Because in neutral painting, colour stops doing the heavy lifting and suddenly everything depends on value, temperature and edges working perfectly together. In this video, we're breaking down why that makes neutral subjects more demanding than they first appear, starting with the biggest misconception of all. I will be using this recent dog commission to help me illustrate my points. Number 1, the myth that neutral paintings are easier. There is a common assumption among painters that a muted low-colour painting is somehow simpler than a colourful one, less to think about, less to manage. And on the surface, that feels logical. Fewer colours on the palette, less mixing, less decision making, but the opposite is actually true. When you are painting with strong saturated colour, the colour itself is doing a lot of the work for you. A vivid blue sky, a bright red flower, the colour carries the painting and draws the eye. You do not have this in a neutral painting. Everything has to be achieved through value, temperature and edges alone. And all three of those have to be working perfectly or the painting will fall flat. This is why so many neutral paintings end up looking muddy, lifeless or just a bit dull. Not because the painter lacks skill, but because they are working with a much narrower set of tools and don't realise it. A brown and grey dog like this one is a perfect example. At first glance it looks straightforward, but every single decision in this painting had to be considered carefully because there was no strong colour to help me. So if you have ever struggled with a neutral subject and wondered why it wasn't working, this video is for you. Because once you understand what a neutral painting actually demands, everything changes. Number 2, what you actually have to work with in a neutral painting. So if strong colour is not available to you, what are your options? In a neutral painting, you are working with 3 things: value, temperature and edges. These 3 elements exist in every painting. But in a colourful painting, colour is doing so much of the heavy lifting that you can sometimes get away with weaknesses in these areas. In a neutral painting, there is nowhere to hide. All 3 have to be working together or the painting simply won't succeed. Value is the lightness or darkness of a colour, and in a neutral painting it is your most powerful tool for creating form, depth and focal point. Temperature is whether a colour leans warm or cool, and in a neutral painting this is what creates variety and life within what could otherwise be a very flat monotone result. Edges are where one colour meets another. Hard edges create sharpness and focus, soft edges create atmosphere and depth. In a neutral painting, edges do a lot of the work that colour would normally do in terms of directing the eye. The really interesting thing is that these 3 elements are always in relationship with each other. A warm neutral next to a cool neutral creates contrast, even if the values are similar. A lost edge can push an area back, even if the colour is much darker. Learning to see and control all 3 simultaneously is what neutral painting teaches you, and that is actually why painting neutral subjects makes you a better painter overall. Number 3, value in a neutral painting. So let's talk about value first, because in a neutral painting it is the backbone of everything. Value is simply how light or dark a colour is, and it is the element that creates form, structure and the illusion of 3-dimension on a flat surface. In a neutral painting, the only thing directing your eye is value. This means your value structure has to be absolutely clear and deliberate. Where is your lightest light? Where is your darkest dark? And how do everything else relate to those 2 anchor points? If I turn this painting into black and white, you'll see my dark values are clearly my ears, eyes and nose. I have some light values around the eyes and nose, but the rest of the painting, including the background, falls into the midtones. Therefore, I need to focus on my temperatures also. Number 4, temperature in neutral paintings. Temperature in a neutral painting is subtle. We are talking about very gentle pushes in one direction or another within a very narrow range of colour. Those subtle shifts are everything. They are what separate a neutral painting that vibrates and breathes from the one that just looks grey and flat. With a brown and grey dog, you will need to work in colourful browns and colourful greys. The best way to mix colourful browns is by mixing opposite colours together. This will give me a range of colour hues to work with and also simplify my warm and cool palette. For colourful greys, you just add white to your opposite colour mix. This will give you the same range of hues, but in grey, and also give you your warm and cool colour palette. For more details on colour mixing, have a look at this video on my channel. What I saw in this painting. Let's briefly look at the reference photo. As you can see, this painting is very neutral in appearance. It is imperative to understand how to mix your browns and greys for successful painting. I have some obvious value changes from light to mid to dark. This will really help me. I have some obvious temperature shifts also from cool to warm to cool. I am going to need to use temperature to separate my dog from its background. Also, my dog has lovely wiry fur, so I will need to concentrate on interesting brushwork to suggest this. Number 5, my palette. Let's now have a look at my palette. I am using cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, viridian, ultramarine deep and titanium zinc white. I have also mixed up a few other colours, a black red and a black green. When I mix these two together, they give me my rich black, a purple, 2 oranges and another green that leans blue. For my dark values, I am using my rich black, green and red. Where I need to lighten it, I am using either my yellow for my warmer areas or my white for my cooler. For my mid-tones, I am starting with this orange as a base and adjusting it depending upon the temperature that I'm seeing. Where I need to make it cooler, I use either this black green or I use my viridian, depending upon how cool I need it. Remember, viridian is much more subtle to work with than ultramarine, so if I need a slight variation to my temperature, I am more likely to use the viridian. I also have the option of this green here, which is a stronger colour because it is semi-opaque due to the inclusion of my yellow ochre light. Remember, these two greens will not affect the value of my mid-tone colours as much as this green. I also have the option of a little white. White desaturates and will push my colour cooler. I also have the option of pushing this orange yellower with my cadmium yellow light, and when I add green to this, it gives me my colour here. For my mid-tone greys, I can use my viridian plus my alizarin crimson plus white to give me this lovely grey. If I want to push it cooler, I use more green. If warmer, more red. I also use this orange plus this green plus white to give me these greys that I can push cooler with this colour or warmer with this colour. I have used white straight from the tube for my highlighted white fur areas. For my background, notice I have gone warmer in this section up here, but cooler in this section down here. That is added viridian. Notice I have the cool of this background next to the warmth of this fur. This helps my dog to pop. To get your brushwork to suggest the wiry nature of the fur, I have painted this alla prima and used a flat brush with no medium. I used the wetness of the paint to pull my edges to keep the overall effect of the fur soft. To sum up, when painting in neutrals, remember, get your values, temperatures and edges correct. Work with complementary colours to give you colourful browns. Work with complementary colours plus white to give you colourful greys. Work alla prima so you can manipulate your edges. Use the appropriate brush to help you accurately describe the object. If you would like to come and paint with me in oils, join my workshop on the 3rd of July. You'll find the link in the description below. There are also more details of lesson opportunities on my website, sarahhallidayart.com. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future painting tips. Thank you for watching and see you next week.